What is going on? Welcome to Week 9 Fantasy Football Preview. A little bit of start-sit action here, just some general takes on the game and some information for you all. If you're here, thank you for being here. Please drop a subscription, press subscribe, sub, whatever term you'd like to use. No matter what you call it, I really appreciate it. Please drop a like, all that helps. And then if you want to see more short-form content, go follow me on TikTok at lukefit.g. I think it's a tradition for me at this point to wipe off these glasses at the beginning of the video, so just because I want to make sure I'm seeing things correctly. But we're going to start by discussing how I want to frame some start-sit decisions and how I process these when I am making them in real time. So I think of them in 4 different categories, basically. Your no-brainers, you don't have to think about it. Guys you are going ahead and starting no matter what. And then there's thumbs up, like guys I feel good about playing. Then there's like a little caution sign, guys that I am putting in my lineup if I have to, but understanding there's a pretty good chance it won't go the way I want it to. And then a risk logo, which just means I'm pretty much feeling like 70% plus this is not going to pan out. I'm going to be setting myself up for failure. We'll start with the Patriots-Falcons game. When you see the number next to these logos, that's the Vegas implied total, aka how many points Vegas thinks that team will score this week. I use those as tiebreakers to determine if I have 2 guys, do I start player A or player B, and I'm really torn, I'll just go with whatever game has the higher, whichever team rather has the higher projected implied total. So with that, let's start with the Atlanta Falcons and the New England Patriots. No-brainers are Drake May, Bijan Robinson, and Drake London. You guys will hear me say no-brainers for a lot of guys who are studs who might have like bad matchups. Like my personal philosophy is if I'm spending a first or second round pick on a player, like I believe in the talent, a bad first half doesn't change my opinion on that, or a bad game doesn't change my opinion on that. Those guys I'm firing up, we don't have to spend any time thinking about it or talking about it. For thumbs up, guys, Hunter Henry, when you see some tight ends up in here, Hunter Henry only had 1 target last week. The tight end landscape is so poor that just knowing you can do a lot worse, there's going to be a lot of tight ends in this thumbs up category that you might raise your eyebrows at a little. I think that's more of a statement of your other options in all likelihood out there. Kyle Pitts, really good game coming off against the Miami Dolphins. 9 targets, 9 catches, did pretty good for you. Stephon Diggs, like Hunter Henry last week, was a bit of a bummer. He did get in the end zone. I think you can fire him up here against the Falcons. The main reason I have Diggs there as a thumbs up is he is still the top option over there. I don't think Mac Holland's success from last week is going to continue. And for me, I was going back and forth. Do I put Diggs as a thumbs up or Diggs as a caution sign? And I just erred on the side of thumbs up. This next tier right here, guys who I could see having good games but feels kind of risky, kind of a 50-50 proposition. Travion Henderson, if Ramondre Stevenson doesn't play, like the opportunity is going to be as good as it has been all year. But we don't know quite yet if he's going to play or not. I could still see Mike Vrabel having some frustrating usage for him. As of Thursday evening, when this is being recorded, Ramondre Stevenson still had not practiced with that toe injury. And I've seen a handful of people online speculate he's going to be out a minimum of 1 and maybe, did I say that right? Minimum of 1 and up to 3 weeks. So that's why Stevenson, there's really no scenario where I'm starting him this week given the injury, given that he didn't look great last week against another good defense in the Cleveland Browns. Darnell Mooney and Kayshon Boutte, kind of the same player in terms of I can see them having a good game, but it's something that I know is a risk, and I'm not necessarily counting on it. If you are making that decision between Mooney, Boutte, and someone else later on, I would just use the implied total we have down here as your tiebreaker. My rule for must starts was studs, right? But Kimani Vidal is a must start because of what he's shown us recently, the usage that we assume he'll have, and the fact that he's playing against the Titans, what we think will be a positive game script. The Chargers also have an implied total of 27, which is one of the highest of any team this week. It actually might be the highest. As we keep scrolling down, we'll get to compare it to others. But I'm firing up Herbert and Vidal with confidence. And then again, a statement about the tight end landscape. You got to fire up Oronde Gadsden. He is third among all players in the NFL the past 2 weeks in receiving yards. So not third among rookies, not third among tight ends, third among all players. Guys I feel good about firing up, Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, good matchup. The only negative I would see is potentially they're not in a very good game script, but we kind of saw that play out last week against the Vikings. Chargers were up all game, and both of those guys, I think Keenan Allen still had a good day, right? I don't want to be speaking out of turn here. He had 4 grabs for 44 yards, so he was solid, but his targets the past 5 weeks, 7, 9, 7, 14, 5. Last week was on the low end of things. Ladd McConkey last week, how would we be feeling about him if he hadn't scored the touchdown? The encouraging thing with Ladd is his target share is going up. He had, to start the season, he went 9, 5, 7, and 6. In the last 4 weeks, he's gone 7, 9, 15, and 10. So if he is locked into double-digit targets, he scored a touchdown in 3 of the past 4 games. The only reason Ladd's not on the must-start rung of the ladder, if you will, is because of I kind of think that the Chargers will be up a lot in this game pretty early and not forced to throw very much. For that same reason, I'm kind of irrationally high on Tyjae Spears. And I'm just a big Tyjae Spears fan in general. We all have those players that won us a playoff game or they won us a game and we're just like, oh, this is my guy. Like last year, that was Tyjae Spears for me. In the semifinals and in the championship, he scored 15 plus. And I think one of those weeks he scored 20. So because of that, he's a guy I'm bullish on. But if we're talking pure logic, not emotional, I think that Tyjae Spears has a chance to provide really solid flex value the rest of the season, even if Tony Pollard doesn't get traded. He is the more dynamic player, in my opinion. He's being used more in pass-catching situations. They're going to be down a lot, and they're going to be facing a lot of unmotivated, softer defensive coverages that are allowing quick checkdowns. So in full PPR leagues, I think Tyjae Spears is a guy. We'll see how he does this week and what we think is going to be a blowout. I think he's going to have a lot of reliable, high floor, limited ceiling flex value. Think 8 rushes for 54 yards. Then he adds on 4 catches for 32 yards. That's 11 points. And if he scores a touchdown, that's 17. I think you might be able to expect that from him from this point forward. I'm hoping that's the case. Quentin Johnston, kind of discouraging to see his usage go down the past few weeks. If we're just comparing the first 4 weeks to the last 4, weeks 1 through 4, he was averaging 8.8 targets per game, a 25% target share, led the team in target share. And then now if we're going weeks 5, 6, 7, 8, in that same size of a window, it's down to 9%, 3 targets per game. So if we cut the season into 2 slices, 8.8 targets per game, 3 targets per game, how is that going to play out? The answer is really going to dictate his value moving forward. And just given the fact that we haven't seen a ton of involvement from him recently, I am not really comfortable starting him unless I have to. Tony Pollard, same story. I don't think there's a lot of upside here. The only scenario I think you feel good about a Tony Pollard start is if he scores a touchdown, which he very well could. And he was really involved in the passing game 2 games ago. Got, I think, 6 targets, 6 grabs. So I could see Pollard giving you that floor, but I would rather go with Spears, who broke off a 40-yard run last week. I just think he's a better player. I think he's going to do more with the work he gets than Tony Pollard will. Alec Iomanner, I'm just not really fired up to start any Titans receiver. Calvin Ridley, I would if he was starting. And again, because of the negative game script, I could see these guys producing. Chimere Dike was another guy I could have put on here and put him in the same category. But if they're not on this graphic, I'm probably just not even considering starting them. All right, this is a funny one because this looks like an absolute fantasy goldmine in terms of implied totals. 51.5 points Vegas projects to be scored in this game. Must start any quarterback that is competent against the Bengals. So we got Caleb Williams there. You're obviously starting Jamar Chase. And Rome Odunze and DeAndre Swift, again, they're playing against the Bengals. We just saw what the Jets did to them. I'm firing them up. And the thumbs up, guys, I feel confident starting, but not quite confident enough to call them must-starts. I feel confident starting T. Higgins. I feel confident starting Chase Brown. I feel confident starting DJ Moore against this defense. And then Colston Loveland, I even feel confident starting him. So the first 5 weeks of the season, Colston Loveland played in 3 games and had a 7% target share. Cole Kmet played in 4 games and had a 12% target share. If we go back to the past 3 weeks, 6, 7, and 8, Colston Loveland is up to 14%. Cole Kmet is down to 6%. So Colston Loveland is the tight end you want in the Bears offense going forward. The question that needs to be answered still is, do you want a tight end in the Bears offense? I would lean no, but given the matchup, I don't hate rolling with Colston Loveland if you have maybe one of your stud tight ends is on bye. I'm not sure if this is a real stat or not. It looks like I guess this is true. The Bengals are the worst team against fantasy tight ends, allowing 21.7 fantasy points a game to tight ends. They've given up 10 tight end touchdowns this year. I think this could be the week that we see the Colston Loveland breakout. At this point, we all know, like, if you need to get right, play the Bengals. Projected to be a fairly close matchup. The Colts at the Steelers feels like must-win territory for the Steelers. Jonathan Taylor, need we say anything? You fire him up no matter what. Daniel Jones, Tyler Warren, really good plays this week. Jaylen Warren, like all running backs, are beholden to their carries, right? But I think the Steelers' offense is limited in the sense that, like, they're really predictable. They only have one standout receiver. They have 3 tight ends, all of whom are talented in their own way, and they all have complementary skill sets. But it just seems like the Steelers are always throwing something to DK Metcalf, or they're running a toss play to Jaylen Warren. I think Jaylen Warren is actually underrated as a player. DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr., firing up both of them. Michael Pittman's having a great year. DK Metcalf is as well. You know, it's not going to be a blowout, but I think the Steelers are going to need to pass the ball. I'm confident in what DK Metcalf's doing just because the chemistry him and Aaron Rodgers have shown. Then Josh Downs and Alec Pierce, I'm not comfortable starting them. And then Roman Wilson, I think the floor is super low. I know he's been used more. I need to see it happen one more time before I feel comfortable enough to start him. 49ers and the Giants. Christian McCaffrey, no-brainer. George Kittle, to some, might not feel like a no-brainer. For me, I know how good George Kittle is. I know how important he is to this team. I know how limited the 49ers pass catchers are. You're starting George Kittle if you have him. I don't feel great about starting Jackson Dart or Tyrone Tracy, but I don't know, like, who else on the Giants are going to contribute offensively. I don't know. I think a lot of it's going to have to go through Dart and through Tracy. So strictly off of that, that's why I'm starting them. And then it seems like Brock Purdy may be back today. Mac Jones was a full participant and Brock Purdy was limited. So if Brock Purdy plays, I feel better about the receivers, but Mac Jones has been fine as well. I'm not really comfortable starting Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton. I know that's like their main 2 guys. The reason Dart's there and his pass catchers aren't is Dart is going to generate 6 to 8 points rushing as a floor. And then Theo Johnson, I just feel like he's the worst version of Robinson and Slayton. Even in a crappy tight end landscape, I'm not comfortable starting him. One of the lower scoring games on the slate, Broncos at Texans. The Texans are favored here, and I would tend to agree with that. I think this is going to be a tough game for Bo Nix and company to navigate. No-brainer. No, it sounds crazy. Going Nico Collins. Pat Surtain is out. That obviously upgrades all of the Texans pass catchers, but particularly Nico Collins. Cortland Sutton, tough matchup, but I do still think he's the number 1 in Denver. He is still leading the team in target share. Like I said in the video of the recap, he dropped a touchdown and then had one called back, or maybe it was vice versa. Woody Marks, when we talk about Tyrone Tracy and Jackson Dart, where is the offense going to go through? A lot of it has been through Woody Marks recently. I'm fine starting him here, just kind of lowering expectations. I think in full PPR, he's a thumbs up. In half PPR, he's a caution. And then caution for Bo Nix, that's kind of relative to expectations. He's had a couple of really good weeks. Would not be surprised if he regressed a little bit against a tough defense that has made Sam Darnold look pedestrian, made Mac Jones have one of his worst games, maybe his worst game of the year. I know he piled on some yards late, but This Texans defense is legit. It's top 3, maybe the best in the league. And because of that, I'm also downgrading J.K. Dobbins, downgrading Troy Franklin. And I know R.J. Harvey, he's a buy for me right now, even with this multi-touchdown game. Like, I think he's a good stash and a trade or buy and stash, excuse me. Still not comfortable starting him given his limited volume. He's scoring once every 12 touches. I don't think that's sustainable. And then Evan Ingram, I'm not excited about starting him in what figures to be a game with a lot of punts. And knowing the NFL, it'll come out and be a shootout, but I'm just not comfortable starting either of those guys. Vikings at Lions. Vikings are 9.5-point underdogs. Who would have thought we'd be saying that 9 weeks into the regular season? But here we are. No brainer. JJ McCarthy, I'm not a believer, but I think Justin Jefferson is good enough. And I hope JJ McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell are good enough to get Justin Jefferson the looks he needs to thrive or to at least give you adequate production. Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, don't need to say anything about those guys. You're starting them. I'm fine starting Jordan Addison. Feel good about him. He's been pretty dang good since coming back. Really involved. Scored a touchdown in multiple games. Like he's just a good player. David Montgomery, in this matchup, I'm fine starting him. I think David Montgomery is pretty matchup dependent. But in a game where they figure to be up by a lot, I'm totally okay starting him. He is going to have some games where he scores 20 plus. Jared Goff, Sam Laporta, same rationale for them. We just saw what Justin Herbert did. The Lions are coming off a bye. I'll take that all day. Guys, I'm like caution signing, and honestly, these first two guys should be bumped down to the risk category, but I'm just not gonna count out them leaning on the run game and having a bit of a bounce back after the Chargers kicked their teeth in. But at the same time, I'm not excited to start either of them. I don't feel good about putting them in my lineup and rolling with it. And then TJ Hawkinson, I think JJ McCarthy at his best can sustain 2 fantasy pass catchers. I don't know if that's the case for 3. And Hawkinson has kind of been third fiddle all year long. Over the course of the season, he has a 17% target share. If we're looking at all tight ends in the NFL, 17% would put him at about 13 or 14. Feel like they're passing the ball a ton. Yeah, they ranked 19th in pass attempts per game. They're leaning on the run a lot more than they were last year. I'm not excited about TJ Hawkinson. All right, another blowout, at least projected blowout. Packers and Panthers. Josh Jacobs and Tucker Kraft, go ahead and fire them up next. Ted McMillan, I feel good, even in a kind of a crummy matchup. I mean, we saw what he did last week against the Bills, right? 9 grabs, 99 yards. Ted McMillan, I feel good about starting every week, but because of where you drafted him, some teams out there might have 3 really good options to start ahead of him, which is why I don't have him in the must start, but he's as close to a must start for me as there is without being one at this point. Jordan Love, feel fine about starting him as well. Not sure how to feel about Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. I do think they'll lean more toward Rico Dowdle this week after giving Chuba Hubbard more touches the past 2. Maybe that motivates Chuba and that leads to better efficiency from him, but Rico Dowdle seems to be the answer there if there is one in that backfield. And then Packers receivers, one of them's going to have a really good game. Maybe 2 of them, but you're going to have a really hard time guessing who it is. I think if I had to guess in this order, I would go Dobbs, Watson, Golden. But Tucker Kraft is the best player there in their pass catching group, and he's the one who has the most predictable targets, I guess. And even if he doesn't get a ton of targets, he's so efficient on a per target basis that even if he gets 5 or 6, he's going to score double-digit points for you. I'm not too sure how to decipher between the Packers receivers right now, other than knowing whenever you're putting them into your lineup, you're kind of rolling the dice, or at least that's what it feels like to me. I think I'm a broken man because I will have BTJ as a must start no matter what every week for the rest of the season. So if you're looking for a more grounded, rational take on BTJ, maybe I'm not saying go somewhere else, but you're not going to hear it from me. The talent's there. The role's there. Is Travis Hunter going to be more involved? Yes. Does that take away from Brian Thomas Jr.? Probably a little bit. Does that change how important he is to this offense or how good of a player he is when he's at his best? I'm not sitting BTJ. I'm starting BTJ. Same thing with Brock Bowers. I know he's coming off an injury. You're still rolling with Brock Bowers. Let's not overthink this. I am okay starting Travis Hunter after his first 100-yard game and touchdown against the Rams prior to the bye. Travis Etienne having a really rough stretch. Well, good thing he gets to play the Oakland Raiders. I have no problem starting Travis Etienne even after a couple of down weeks. And Ashton Genty, I'm okay starting him. He is a pretty important part of their offense. And hopefully the additions of Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers make the passing game a little more viable and open things up more in the run game. Speaking of Myers and Trey Tucker, I don't know. I need to see some positive momentum from this Raiders offense before feeling good about starting any pass catcher not named Brock Bowers. Rams Saints, another projected blowout. Puka, Devontae, Kyron, come aboard. You guys are starting no matter what. Matthew Stafford, I think, probably should have gone in the no-brainer tier, but again, I just fear a game where they get up by a lot and don't have to throw. Because of that game script, Chris Olave, he's a thumbs up. Tough matchup, but we just saw what Travis Hunter did to them. If I could go back and correct myself, I would put Chris Olave in the must-start tier. He's just not quite the stud that is normally up there, but he's producing like one in a pretty mid offense at best. Like, I feel like that's being kind. Rashid Shaheed and Juwan Johnson, not as confident in, but again, I think coin flip, 50-50 chance that they give you something there. Same thing with Blake Corum. In a less friendly game script for running, I would have him in the risk category, but because the Rams are such heavy favorites, I could see a scenario play out where he gets a good bit of work and maybe is getting more opportunity late than Kyron Williams, and because of it, scores a touchdown. All right, the marquee matchup of the weekend, and I believe the highest projected total of the day. Tons of fantasy relevant players in this matchup. Tons of guys that you need to fire up. You're starting both quarterbacks. You're starting James Cook. You're starting Travis Kelce. You're starting Rashee Rice no matter what. Khalil Shakir is a guy I'm comfortable starting. I do think that the Bills will be passing more in this game just out of necessity against the Panthers. Obviously, they just got to run it up literally and figuratively. Kareem Hunt, because Isaiah Pacheco probably won't play, at least that's what it looks like, I think he's a pretty strong play. He goes from being like a 50-50 roll the dice guy to go ahead and start him. And then Pacheco probably needs to be off this graphic. Xavier Worthy had good involvement last week. I need to see another day of good involvement with Rashee Rice back before bumping him up. I just don't have a ton of confidence. And then same thing with Dalton Kincaid, kind of coming back down to earth. Again, you could argue they're going to be passing more. The tight end landscape is pretty rough, in which case I would say, okay, go ahead, start him. And then risk, I'm done with Keon Coleman from a fantasy standpoint. If he has good games on my bench, so be it. But he's not seeing the light of day in my starting lineup until he has consistent good games. And as someone who told everyone to buy him after week 1, I can admit when I'm wrong. That is not happening. Brashard Smith, with no Pacheco, is interesting. Maybe needs to be bumped up a tier. But was not all that involved last week against the Commanders, even in a blowout victory. So again, with no Pacheco there, maybe that changes. But it's kind of hard to say. The schedule makers thought these would be way better games when the schedule came out because the primetime games kind of suck. Seahawks at the Commanders. Commanders in a must-win spot, so at least that urgency is cool to watch from a fan standpoint. Jackson Smith and Jigba, you're starting him. Terry McLaurin, what is happening out there? If Terry McLaurin plays, I'm fine starting him. Obviously, if not, you're not going to. Zach Ertz should have been on this graphic. Zach Ertz is a caution start. Even though he has been a successful tight end this year, the Seahawks defense is just really good. And then because of how good the Seahawks defense is, I don't want any Bill exposure this week. And then Cooper Kupp has not been nearly as involved the past few weeks. He was already pretty inconsistent with his involvement. And then lastly, Monday night, Cardinals at the Cowboys. Lots of Cowboys who are fantasy relevant, all of whom you have to start, at least in my mind. Prescott, Williams, Lamb, Ferguson, Pickens, McBride, all of those guys you're firing up. Because of how bad the Cowboys are defensively, I feel good about Kyler Murray, MHJ, and Bam Knight. Michael Wilson normally would be in the risk category, but again, it is the Cowboys, so if you need a wide receiver and you are missing some guys or you have some guys on bye, you could probably do worse than Michael Wilson on waivers. If you're still watching, thank you. I appreciate it. Please drop a subscribe, drop a like, and then go follow the TikTok at lukefit.g so you don't miss any more stuff. Thank you again. We will have a recap of week 9 posted probably Monday night or Tuesday morning, so keep an eye out for that. And I will see you very soon. That's it for now. Deuces.